Hello. I am going live today because I want to talk about what to do or what to even think about if you feel like you have had to push back on your goals, if you feel like you have just given up on your financial goals. I want to talk about, what to do, what to think about, what I'm also thinking about as well. Now, for those of you who don't know, my name is Verania and I'm a money coach, and I essentially help spenders save more money. So, especially if you're watching this in real time, I wanted to come on live to talk about this because we are coming towards the end of the year, and you might be thinking about, what happened this year in terms of your goals, and you might be thinking about, okay, how am I going to plan next year's goals? But I think one of the things that I've realized is that for many people, we've almost felt like we've been dreaming about the future, but there's maybe just we don't know if there's going to be if it's actually going to happen in reality. We don't know if we're going to be able to plan out for the future that we have. Maybe we feel like, we should be further ahead with our finances. Maybe you're hitting, your 30s or your 40s or even your 50s, and you're thinking, oh, I should be more ahead when it comes to my finances. I should have more savings. I should have been investing. I should have paid off like a significant amount of debt. And now it just feels like I can't do any of that. And I think especially this year, inflation hasn't helped at all. And so you might be thinking like everything is just so expensive. I'm not going to be able to save as much as I wanted to. I'm not going to be able to pay off my debt because I have other things that I need to focus on because of, the way the economy is and all of these circumstances. And so I think there is a lot, and I think this year has maybe been a challenging year for some of us, but I want us to start thinking differently when it comes to our goals. Because yes, your circumstances may have changed, especially this year, but I don't think that we should still be giving up on our goals. I think that it's still important to, think about what we want to be doing, what we want to achieve financially. Think about like what God's purpose is for us. Still keep working towards some of these goals. So the first thing I would say is be okay if your goals need to change, and recognize what you have already achieved. Recognize how far you've already come. So what I mean by this is your goals don't have to be set in stone from the beginning of the year and never change. You can adapt your goals. You can change your goals. I change my goals all the time. And for me, I've always felt like when it comes to, different financial goals, it's not really about the result. It's not about like me specifically achieving that goal. It's more about, okay, like what do I need to do to achieve that goal? What is the process that I need to go through to achieve that goal? How do I need to change to achieve that goal? What is the identity that I need to move into to achieve that goal? So for me, when it comes to, the goals that I may have set, the most important part is actually the journey. It's not the result. Like the result will happen when it happens. But for me, I want to see, okay, have I actually changed in a good way for me to now work towards that goal? Have I actually changed the way, maybe the way I view money? Have I changed the way that I invest my money? Have I changed the way that I view savings? Have I changed my mindset when it comes to money? Do I no longer always feel broke all the time, for example? And so I think that, yes, although like we may have set goals back in the beginning of the year, they could 100% change. But I think the most important thing is actually looking at your progress, is actually looking at the journey. And so when I'm saying like also recognize how far you've come, even if you don't feel like you're going to hit your specific goals for this year, how far have you actually come? So let's say, for example, you really wanted to start saving a lot more money. Maybe you wanted to save, 5K this year. But, you haven't been able to save as much. Maybe you've only been able to save 1K so far. But even thinking about, okay, how did you even get to that 1K? Did you finally open up a savings account? Was that something completely new to you? What are you, starting to look at your bank accounts more often so you kind of know how much you're spending versus how much you're saving? Did you even actually have the goal of knowing, okay, this is how much I want to save per month or per quarter? Just having that looking at that progress, so just looking at the journey, is so much better than beating yourself up saying, oh, I didn't hit my 5K goal, so I just need to forget it and just move on with my life. It's like, how can you actually evaluate, okay, how well have you done? Have you actually progressed? And even knowing that, okay, maybe I didn't say 5K, but that 1K is a lot more than I had last year. And so it's really important to be thinking about the journey rather than just the full result. Or maybe you're trying to pay off debt, for example. So let's say that you wanted to pay off, I don't know, 10K this year, but it didn't happen. But what you could be asking yourself is, okay, well, what did I do to at least progress towards paying off that debt? Did I figure out how much debt I actually have? Because if last year you didn't even know like how many debts you had, or you didn't even know what your debts came to, but this year you knew exactly how much you needed to pay off, that's progress. Or if, for example, you started making a debt payoff plan and you knew what you were going to prioritize first, that's progress. And so again, really thinking about, okay, like what have I actually done, and being okay if your goals change. Because I think that what happens is we set these goals and then we come towards the end of the year and we're like, oh no, I didn't do anything. And then we just get upset. And then we don't even think about the progress that we've made either. Because the progress that you made this year, you can then carry it on to next year. The skill that you started to build this year, you can carry that on to the next year. And so whatever you've done this year, even if you haven't hit your goals, that is still useful, because you can then take that to next year. You can then evaluate and say, okay, this is what I did well, this is what I didn't do so well. Okay, let me keep doing what I did well and let me work on what I didn't do so well, so that next year I can be even better. So I think like when it comes to like having our goals, that is something that we just need to focus on. Being okay if your goals change, and also recognizing how far you've come. The second thing that I wanted to talk about as well is thinking about how you can change going forward. So even though we're coming towards the end of the year, it doesn't mean we need to give up. We still have time. Yes, you may not hit your ultimate goal, but can you get even closer to that goal? Even if we're going to, even if like it's going to be 2024 next year, is there anything that you can start doing today to make a difference? Because again, as I mentioned, what you start doing this year and what you start doing towards the end of the year will also have an impact on what you start doing towards the beginning of the year. And I think sometimes we have this mentality where it's like, no, we just got to wait till the new year starts and then we'll start. Like I'm just gonna wait to start saving from January. Come January, I'm gonna start saving. But it's like, no, could you just start doing it now? Like, could you still work towards saving up for your first 1K this year? Could you still start working towards saving up for 500 this year? Could you start doing things now, so that by the time you enter into the next year, by the time you enter into 2024, you already know exactly what you're doing, and all you're doing is just improving on what you've been doing before. So really think about, okay, are there things that actually I can do this year? Can I still set a savings goal and try and reach that at the end of this year, so that by the time we go into next year, I know exactly what I'm doing? Can I still have a debt payoff plan, so that by the time it comes to next year, I'm already working off paying off my debt, and actually I'll end up paying off my debt even quicker because I started now? I think just because we're going towards the end of the year, yes, that's all great, but it doesn't mean that you still can't be working towards your goals. Don't just give up on the goals that you set earlier on this year because you don't feel like you're far enough. There are things you can do today to start working towards those goals. And even if you feel like, oh, I'm just not ahead, like I feel like I would have been further ahead by the time I was like 30 or 35 or 40, whatever age it is, I love the saying where they always say that, yes, the best time to have started was yesterday, but the second best time is today. So I'm always in the camp of, okay, cool, this happened in the past, but what else can I now do today to have an impact on my future? Because 1 year down the line, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, I'm going to be so thankful that I listened to myself and decided to still take action and do something. So whether it is you trying to pay off debt, whether it's you trying to reach a savings goal, whether it's you trying to start, investing, and you're trying to figure out, okay, I really want to start investing through the stock market. What do I need to do? These are things that you can still do today. There are still things that you can do today. You can start preparing and have a debt payoff plan. And you can start putting money towards that debt. You can start having a savings plan and start putting money towards your savings and carry that on to the next year. You could have an investing plan where you say, okay, this is how much I'm going to be investing. This is when I'm going to be investing. This is the platform I'm going to be using when it comes to investing. So again, by the time you enter into the new year, you know exactly what you're already doing. There's no figuring out. There's no oh, okay, what should I plan? What should I do? What do I want to do? No, you can literally just go straight into it and keep going, because then you'll start to reach your goals a lot quicker as well. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is to think about your being a problem solver as well. Sorry, I was just looking at my notes because sometimes I forget. So what I mean by this is you also want to think about, again, what are some things that you want to improve on from this year? So let's say, for example, you really wanted to save 10K this year, but you realize that, I don't know, throughout the year, because of inflation, because things were so much more expensive, that then had an impact on your bills, and so you weren't able to save as much. Well, what you could be thinking is, okay, I know that things are a lot more expensive and it's probably not going to change next year. Let's be honest. It is probably not going to change next year. So what can I do differently to make sure that even though there is all of this inflation, I can still be able to save? Maybe you decide that actually you need a career change and it's time to go and get a promotion or just find another job. Maybe you decide that you potentially want to start some type of side hustle or even get a second job, whatever it is, just to make sure that you then have enough money to save regardless of whether you have this inflation. Because yes, your external circumstances can change, but what you can control is what you can control. So what you have the ability to do is at least still take some control, even if your other external circumstances have changed. So that's one example. What things can you do to improve where things happened last year that was out of your control that you can now start to control for this year? When it comes to paying off debt, maybe you realize that you were still impulse spending a lot, and so you weren't able to put as much money towards your debt. Well, then what you might want to be thinking about is, okay, going into the rest of this year, going into next year, what are some things that I can do to help me control my spending so that I actually have money to put towards my debt? What are some things that I can do to make it easier for me to just prioritize my debt whilst also still being able to spend money too? What are some practical things that I can start doing? So you can see how, again, even if you feel like you're just not ahead on your goals or you feel like you've given up on your goals, I want you to start thinking, how can I be more of a problem solver? And what are some things that I've learned from this year that I can now take to next year and be better at it and actually do something about it? Does that make sense? I hope that was helpful. If you've got any questions, do let me know. But what I wanted to do is, again, go through those 3 things. So again, be okay if your goals change and recognize how far you've come. And I think that's actually even a big one, because sometimes I think, especially if you're very similar to me, we almost have this kind of perfectionism mentality where it's oh no, if I haven't hit my goal, then that's it, I haven't done well. But just recognizing the fact that you are probably better off than what you did last year is already a massive achievement. I remember I had a client who was upset because she ended up having to use her emergency fund, and she was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to hit my goal because I've had to use my emergency fund. But then I told her the fact that she had already saved for an emergency fund was already a massive achievement in itself. Because in the past, what had happened is if something happened, her car broke down, she would end up having to go into debt because she didn't have money. So the fact that she had saved money, she had an emergency fund, yes, she had to use it, but that's what it was there for. And the fact that she had to use that, she needed to celebrate the fact that she was able to have savings and be able to cover that emergency. So even if it's small, I always say you still want to celebrate. You still want to see how far you've come. And then the other thing I spoke about was thinking about, what can you change going forwards? And remembering that there is still time. You can still be able to meet some of these financial goals. You can still work towards some of these financial goals. There is still time. If you're trying to pay off your debt, if you're trying to save, if you're trying to invest, there is still time to do it. And the third thing I was talking about was just being a problem solver. So actually figuring out, okay, what didn't work well this year? How can I then change it and improve so that by the time next year, that's not a problem anymore. And I can still then work towards my goals and eventually achieve them as well. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, of course, you can always DM me. And if you do want further support when it comes to your finances, if you know that one of the things that you want to do is be able to actually save more money, that's a key goal that you had this year and maybe you didn't achieve it and you maybe need a bit more help with that, that's exactly what I help you do in one-to-one money coaching. I've been able to help my clients save a lot more money so that they can work towards their other financial goals. So if you want to learn more, you can book a call to find out more about one-on-one coaching via my link in bio, or you can DM me about it. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to leave it there if there are no questions, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.